Welcome to the Authority Podcast, Plumbing and Mechanical. When talking about the built environment, we would do well to remember, we shape our buildings, and afterwards, our buildings shape us. Therefore, on each episode, we'll discuss the latest trends from IAPMO in plumbing and mechanical safety, sustainability, and resiliency. Join me, your host, Christoph Lohr, and together we'll explore the ways we can make our buildings shape us for the better. Epic Cleantech is closing the loop on water, helping buildings recycle up to 95% of their wastewater right on site. Named a Time Magazine Best Invention of the Year, the Epic One Water system has set a new standard for water reuse in the built environment. Learn more at epiccleantech.com. The high volume of wastewater generated by hospitals historically is a challenge for engineers that want to promote safety and sustainability. Not only that, but due to waterborne pathogen concerns, hospitals are set to flush even more water to drain in an effort to control water age. On today's podcast, I'll be speaking with Bob Salvatelli, Director of Water Organization for NextEra Distributed Water, and Patricia Sinecropi, Executive Director of the Water Reuse Association, about how hospital water reuse systems work, costs that hospitals need to consider upfront for installation and ongoing maintenance, and what policymakers should consider for codes and standards governing hospital reuse. Let's get to our discussion. Pat, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
And we also have joining us Bob Salvatelli, Director of Water Origination for NextEra Distributed Water, and also the co-chair of the Water Reuse Association On-Site and Distributed Water Recycling Systems Committee. Bob, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, I'm really excited to have both you guys on here to talk about the subject, because I think it's one that's probably maybe an emerging concept that a lot of us are starting a conversation about, but in some ways it's already been established too. Let's start with the question, especially in healthcare, hospitals historically use a lot of water. What steps can hospitals take to reduce their wastewater discharge to the building sewer system? And Pat, do you have any maybe thoughts on that?
Sure. Yes. And as you noted in your introductory remarks, that hospitals are not only high users of water, but the discharge of their wastewater stream obviously contains a lot of biohazard material that otherwise we wouldn't want in our surface waters and demand a higher level of treatment. So water recycling systems is a very good alternative for hospitals to take a look at and consider installing, so that they're not only reducing their overall water consumption from the general grid, if you will, but they're also providing that additional treatment to their waste streams that produces a higher quality effluent and minimizes the risks, the public health risks associated with otherwise their conventional wastewater stream. So I think it's a great alternative for hospitals to look at.
I think that's a really nice broad-based view of this, and diving into the details a little bit. So there's obviously the implication of what hospitals using a lot of water, and this opportunity here. But then the next question I think that comes up is, can hospitals safely reuse their wastewater? So maybe Bob, is there, from your experience, are there uses for treated hospital wastewater?
Yeah, absolutely, Christoph. I mean, we have an example in the photograph behind me of a hospital we commissioned a few months ago in Atlanta that's treating up to 250,000 gallons a day of combined wastewater and safely using it in cooling tower applications, boiler makeup applications, maybe eventually some land application for irrigation as the hospital, settles out its construction. So the answer is yes, it's being done today. Pat was correct that the streams are very different than domestic waste, traditional domestic waste, with, dialysis and all the pharma that goes on within a hospital setting. So you have to use a little bit more sophisticated equipment up close and personal when you do on-site reuse to really effectively do what you want to do to meet the reclaim standard. But absolutely, it can be done and is being done as we speak.
Excellent. Well, so there's an opportunity there. It can be done safely. But the one question that seems to come up a lot now with hospitals is waterborne pathogens, right? Things like Legionella pneumophila. Pat, maybe let me direct this question towards you. more hospitals are flushing water at showers and lavatories daily. I've been having a lot of conversations on my end with a lot of different facilities that are really trying to be mindful of this concern of waterborne pathogens such as Legionella pneumophila. Is there a possibility of collecting this gray water and using it to flush toilets in certain areas?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's really what the design purpose is for these on-site systems is capturing the gray water, treating it to very high standards, and using it for non-potable application purposes in the building, such as flushing and other cooling needs and other purposes, as Bob just outlined. And the benefit of taking a water recycling approach is that you're using the most sophisticated treatment technology that exists. You're putting in redundant treatment systems. You're really pulling out absolutely every potential harmful constituent in that water, including pathogens and viruses. And so, we now have technology that's becoming increasingly affordable, that really does purify water to a standard that is beyond drinkable. And hospital effluent is a perfect use application, if you will, for using those technologies that can really treat to quite high standards and allow the hospital to reuse that water stream.
Pat, that's a really wonderful way of explaining that, and I hadn't thought of that before. And when I've worked in healthcare as a plumbing design professional, so many of the systems like MedGas or whatnot always had redundancy to them, to have some sort of additional failsafe. And what you bring up is this wonderful point of redundancy in water quality, and that's what I'm definitely going to hold on to from our conversation here. Really astute point there. So we have this opportunity for additional redundancy. Maybe let me bounce this back to Bob here. So we have this opportunity for additional redundancy, enhanced water safety. So what does that look like? So what does a water reuse system look like in a healthcare facility? How do they work? What monitoring and testing protocols ensure the quality of the reuse water? And is there any costs that hospitals and healthcare facilities should be aware of for installation and ongoing maintenance?
Yeah, it's a loaded question there. So, selfishly, the plug for this project is that we did this under a water processing agreement by which the hospital doesn't pay anything. So it's just like a solar transaction. So there is no additional cost to the client. We bear the expense of both the design, permit, and commissioning, and execution of the project, and then the ongoing maintenance. So in this scenario, it's really a win for the hospital, and their payback is essentially day one. In a normal environment, as Pat mentioned, you're talking about some very sophisticated equipment with MBR technology, and things of that sort, with 0.01 micron effectiveness of treatment of pathogens, of removal of pathogens, in addition to dual disinfection. And also, we do not decouple from the water treatment supplier on site. So there's still a chemical, biological process that happens, or dosing that happens, to biocides that happen to correct cooling tower, potential Legionella issues. So when you add all that in, and the redundancy of controls to allow for the inline monitoring of all this, Pat said it better than I could. It's basically drinking water. It's not sold as drinking water, but it's drinking water quality, because these technologies are light years ahead of conventional systems. So when you bring it up close, you can use it very quickly. You can turn it around in 8 to 12 hours, and then you could add storage as part of the resiliency for the system. So clean water storage to allow for something on the other side. So the city water turns off for a few hours, those cooling towers and boilers can keep going, surgeries can keep happening. So the resiliency play, in addition to not costing anything, really was the driver for that project.
That's a really, again, another insightful piece here is the resiliency, for if the water gets shut off, from the city for, some kind of natural disaster of some kind. Again, there seems to be a lot of really amazing benefits here. As we talk about benefits, we always have to be mindful of of things to be kind of considering during the process of utilizing new technologies, or maybe not even new technologies, but technologies new to a certain owner or facility. I imagine there's probably some skill sets that hospitals should consider when they're hiring a water reuse system designer, installer, and maintainer. And maybe Pat, you can touch on that a little bit. What you've seen, and maybe what guidance maybe you would give in that regard.
Sure. I would certainly, as more communities and businesses are adopting water recycling approaches and systems, the need for capacity, a workforce to be able to operate and maintain those systems is obviously heightened and needed. So thankfully, there's now quite a few consulting engineering firms, Bob's company, for example, others, other businesses that have the talent that you would need to come in and operate and maintain those systems. Facility managers of buildings that adopt water recycling, on-site water recycling systems will obviously need to receive certifications and acquire the talent that needed to operate an on-site system locally. It does require additional expertise, but thankfully we're seeing more and more engineers with the skill set needed to maintain and operate the systems efficiently.
No, that's really good to hear. And I think that obviously, as systems and what we do in industry becomes more complex, there's definitely this need for, additional people and then additional standards. And I think, when it comes to codes and standards, I guess one more question for you here, Pat, is, how should municipalities think about codes and regulations that govern hospital water reuse? On our end, IAPMO, we have the Water Efficiency and Sanitation Standard, which has a lot of water reuse provisions in there. There's a new IAPMO ANSI standard, Z1324, if I remember the number correctly, that talks about the specific things. And I know as an engineer, when I was doing design, if I could easily refer to a standard or to a code section, it definitely streamlined my process. What's been your experience, Pat, and in terms of guiding municipalities in terms of codes and regulations when it comes to water reuse to try to help streamline this process maybe a little bit more?
Well, one of the things we're doing at the Water Reuse Association is supporting the efforts that are underway to develop a standard set of local regulations and ordinances that can oversee the operation of on-site systems. We support the National Blue Ribbon Commission for non-potable on-site water recycling systems. That is the work that they're doing, is precisely this work, identifying those standards and regulations that need to be in place locally to ensure the safe oversight of on-site systems. Luckily, we're now further down the road than we were 10 years ago, and there are, many examples of communities that have adopted regulations, ordinances that other communities can look to and adopt pretty easily on their own. So that's the work that I think is in front of us, trying to encourage as many communities and municipalities as possible to adopt local plumbing standards that facilitate greater adoption of on-site systems. It's important work, and it's being done.
No, that's really exciting to hear. Well, as we wrap up, let me ask each of you one last question. And Pat, you've already been on here. This is your second time on the podcast. We'd absolutely love to have you on third and fourth and so on many times. And Bob, this is your first time on. And I would imagine we'd have you come back on to talk more about water reuse in general, because it does seem to be a very hot topic now. So the next time you guys come on, the next year or two, what do you think we're going to be talking about when it comes to water reuse? And I guess I'll start with you, Bob, and then Pat, if you want to wrap us up.
Yeah, the first projects we did out of the gate were on the smaller side, 500,000 gallons a day, sub 1 million. By the time we talk again, you'll see some examples of 2 and 3 and 4 million gallon a day systems, using all methodologies that you can imagine from, treatment like MBR all the way to desal. We have a very robust pipeline and a lot of adoption coming forward because of projects like this, because of the things Water Reuse Association has done with regards to changing policies in specific states like 1289 in Texas recently to allow folks to do folks like us to do what we do. So I think the adoption we're in the early stages of it. And I think in the next couple of years, you'll see some massive things all on the way to direct potable reuse. But I think there's an interim step, which is on site for the next, couple decades before we get very serious in that space.
Excellent. And Pat, bring us home. What do you think we're going to be talking about in the next time we have you on the podcast in regards to water reuse?
How much its adoption has accelerated. We're seeing places we never thought we would be talking to them about water recycling. Regions of the country that don't have necessarily water scarcity issues actually do have water scarcity issues, and so I think in 2 or 3 years, we're all going to be surprised by just how accelerated the interest and adoption is in water reuse.
Excellent. Well, on behalf of the Authority Podcast, Plumbing, Mechanical, and IAPMO, I just want to say thank you, Pat. Thank you, Bob, for joining, for sharing your expertise and your insights, and look forward to having you back on the show sometime soon.
Sure thing. Thank you, Christoph.
Yeah. Thank you, Christoph.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of the Authority Podcast, Plumbing and Mechanical. Love this episode of the podcast? Head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Please follow us on Twitter @AuthorityPM, on Instagram @TheAuthorityPodcast, or email us at iapmo@iapmo.org. Join us next time for another episode of the Authority Podcast, Plumbing and Mechanical. In the meantime, let's work together to make our buildings more resilient and shape us for the better.